Horticultural Society regarding the Five Corners Gardens.
Welcome, Ms. Robertson.
Thank you. I'm making this presentation today together with Anne Hancock, who, as you will find out, was very instrumental in the development of the Five Corners Garden and still is extremely dedicated and puts in many hours of her time. But I'm speaking to you first on behalf as president of the Cobourg Horticultural Society. I understand at the last council meeting that a motion was accepted by council to include in its 2008 capital budget adjustments to the William King intersection. It was further suggested, and I believe this is evident from the Executive Committee's report, that this would include removal of some or all of the Five Corners Garden. I have to say, frankly, I am appalled and disappointed that Councillor Spooner, the representative for Parks and Recreations in this town, failed to raise a single objection or even ask for more information about the effect of such road changes on this garden. It cannot but be the bounden duty of Councillor Spooner, at a minimum, to ask for more information and for time for the Parks and Recreations Committee to review the situation affecting a beautiful little park. And consultation with the Cobourg Horticultural Society would not go amiss either. Are we once again to throw away a little green pearl as though it was some worthless trinket? I would remind Councillor Spooner of town plans to enter the Communities in Bloom competition within the next couple of years. Seed money for this competition has been already donated, although planning was left too late for 2008 entry. Do you not, Councillor Spooner, think that this garden would make a significant contribution to an entry from this town? In case Council has already forgotten, let me remind you about the creation and maintenance of this much admired little gem at the gateway into downtown Cobourg. It was established as a Millennium Project by the Garden Club using its own money to do so, not a penny of town money. Not only was the garden set out and planted by club volunteers who put in many hours of their own time, it was also members of the club who paid for and built the arbor and carved sign. It, as I said, was created and still maintained diligently under the dedicated direction of Anne Hancock. Subsequently, the Garden Club received a frame town citation for the work at a ceremony acknowledging the contribution of volunteers in Cobourg. Throughout its creation, the club worked closely with town staff. And since 2001, it has been maintained and enhanced by volunteer club members, with the town only mowing the grass. I regret to say that recent experience with the council, personal experience, leads me to worry that I may be merely wasting my time this evening. Nonetheless, I am compelled to ask, on behalf of the Cobourg Horticultural Society, which has been helping beautify this town for almost 150 years, that the Five Corners Garden be left untouched for all, especially visitors to the town, to enjoy. I would also greatly appreciate a response from the council that I can take back to the club's executive and membership, indicating an appreciation of both the value of this garden and of the substantial work and effort of member volunteers. And now I would like to hand over to Anne Hancock. Thank you.
Your Worship, councillors, and gentlemen. As a person instrumental in creating the park that will be affected by any changes at King and William, I would like to add to what the President has said. I think it would be a great loss to the town and to the people of Cobourg if the Five Corners Park were to be diminished in any way. The site gives pleasure to a large number of people and of all ages. Many students come by and tell us how much they like it. They stop and say so as we work there, and the drivers sitting at the traffic lights will often wind down their windows and call out and say how much they appreciate it. It is used, it is respected, and it has never been vandalized. Creating more traffic lanes will make it less attractive and less accessible to those who enjoy a quiet recreational time there, so that it may become as user-unfriendly and sterile as the place at Elgin and William. Since the year 2000, I and several others of the Society have worked once a week from April to October at the park, and we have not noticed a problem with traffic turning west. I wonder what specific traffic on King Street, west of William or Margaret Street, requires special attention. It's not likely to be Campbell's Variety. There is the town yard. But the town can surely regulate the traffic patterns of its own workforce. I do see a very large rig parked at 337 King Street West, close to the foot of Margaret Street. Could this be causing a problem? And will the residents of King Street be any the less distressed than those on Margaret Street if traffic volume increases with the new road layout? In our town, from Brook Road North to Burnham Street, traffic can move south to join King Street, but at none of the intersections has the town considered it necessary to redesign the street to create specially designated lanes to facilitate drivers who wish to travel west. Why is it assumed that this is a problem peculiar to the junction of the Five Corners? Finally, I am concerned that there are people in positions of influence in the town who might consider this attractive gateway to downtown simply as a piece of undeveloped town property that is totally expendable in order to serve the interests of highway development and the freer movement of cars. What we need is not more asphalt, but as much green space as possible in our residential areas. I might point out here that we did make the park accessible to wheelchairs and people with strollers and things. Is what you are planning really essential or in the interests of the wider community, environmentally, aesthetically, or even financially? I ask you to give this serious thought when you come to your deliberations. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Questions and comments?
To either of the presenters, were you aware that Mr. Peacock said last week that this was only one of a range of options that we're going to look at with regard to the requests of the people on 4th Street concerning their health and safety?
How do you mean was only a range of options? I looked at the motion, and the motion was to accept putting an amount in the capital budget for road adjustments for 2008 at that intersection.
Mr. Peacock said at the meeting, if you'd bothered to ask anyone who attended the meeting, that was for a worst case scenario, that he was looking at a range of options. So were you aware of that?
No, I'm not.
So
what would the other options be?
Mr. Peacock will present that in time to the council, so the sarcastic and in some cases allusions to perhaps even corruption or whatever, the comments that you made earlier this evening directed initially at
I take huge exception to that.
Hold on now, everyone.
A huge exception to that.
Wait a second,
we
everyone.
made no such insinuations.
Hold on, Ms. Robertson.
With regard,
please just finish your statement.
I think I finished it. I think our presenters have demonstrated their capabilities.
Councillor Mouton.
No, I'm sorry. I have to respond to that.
Please, we're here for presentation.
Well,
I
then
realize
I think
what
we
happened.
have to leave.
Councillor Mouton, please.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, through you to the presenter. Was at any time the Horticulture Society advised or consulted on the matter coming forward before council?
No, we were never consulted. Never at all. We knew nothing about this coming. We knew nothing about the motion. Mr. Peacock has not been in touch with any of us to talk about the other options that Mr. MacDonald's talking about, or to discuss the impact on the park or what could be done.
I guess I would seek a clarification if I may at this point. I do understand that the item came forward as a concept last week, although on the surface I myself was also uncomfortable with it because of its impact. It was a concept superimposed on a photograph, and it was very clear of what the potential implications could be. And I do recall that Mr. Peacock did mention that this was still a conceptual stage. My concern is that the item was priced at about $80,000, and that it would be moving as a ballpark, and it was to be moved through to budget deliberations. I do have a concern that there was no time, and it doesn't state in the motion that there would be actually options looked at. I think I would be more comfortable if we had a friendly amendment to the motion when it comes up later. And I must say that I do feel, and perhaps Mr. Peacock could clarify the process of this, but I must say that when an organization such as the Horticulture Society, and it could be other organizations, put so much effort into something like this, for my part, I do apologize that you've been dragged through this, because I do feel that it's very uncomfortable. And this is my view.
Point of order, the councillor is supposed to be asking questions now. She wants to address a point of view. We have time during debate. And I also take exception to her idea of saying we're dragging the Horticultural Society through it. They came tonight to make a presentation, which in my mind, and I'm sure in some of the, at least in the other members of the council's mind, was at the very least considerably sarcastic. Now, I think, Your Worship, we would ask if the councillor has a question, she should ask her question. She can put her debate forward later in the evening.
Councillor Mouton, do you have a question?
I actually requested a clarification, and I provided the background to that request. And this is not the first time that Councillor MacDonald has attacked me, and I will not.
Hold on, folks.
And me.
Have you got a question?
Women.
You haven't got a question? It is coming up.
I had a request for a clarification because we did have comments from the Director of Public Works last week, and I think for the benefit of the presenters, since they may have not been aware that it was on the agenda. I don't know. I'm not speculating here, but I think because we are on camera, and because the Director of Public Works is here, and because the presentation has been made, whether it's under delegation discussion afterwards, I think it's appropriate at this time, given the concern expressed.
I think it is coming up later on in the agenda, and at that time, then the council can be in discussion, and the questions that are being asked and the debate can take place at that time. Are there any other questions by councillors? Councillor Frost.
I would, through you, to the Director of Public Works. First of all, I took what we decided on last week as a conceptual issue. In your mind, Mr. Peacock, are there other alternatives that might be brought into play at that area that would not damage to any extent that little parkette?
Mr. Peacock, please.
Yes, Your Worship, through to Councillor Frost. What was provided to Council was a conceptual view of the turning radius that would be required if Council so wished to put a turning radius at the location. It is actually the worst case scenario to show what would happen with a R17 radius, which is the RB17 radius, which is the largest truck that would be servicing that area. So there would be a whole process of debate once, if Council looked at that. There would be other options for smaller radiuses or other options to direct traffic another way.
Thank you, Mr. Peacock. That was my understanding.
Thank you. Any further questions from councillors? Thank you very much, both Ms. Robertson and Ms.
I just have to say, because the television cameras are here, that I'm surprised, Mr. Mayor, that you did not ask Mr. MacDonald to apologize both to myself and the executive of the Cobourg Horticultural Society.
Thank you very much.
I would like to point out that whether we were under a misapprehension or not, we were very happy to be able to present our feelings about our corner and
Thank you. I
in
appreciate
future.
that,
Thank
Ms.
you.
Hancock. very much. Thank you. That's great.
Your worship, the next is a delegation